China's economic mess goes deep. Wooing foreign investors might not help beyond a point. Already, leading companies are under pressure. Look at what happened to the Volkswagen CEO. There was a shareholder meeting. Some activists turned up and they threw cake at the CEO. What were these activists angry about? Volkswagen has a plant in Xinjiang, and the activists say the company uses forced Uyghur labor in Xinjiang. In fact, more companies are coming under pressure to move their business away from China, not just Xinjiang, but elsewhere too. They're decoupling from China. And China's economic situation is expected to accelerate this decoupling. The latest numbers are out, and they're not looking good. Production by factories has slowed in China, growth in sales is weak, and unemployment is rising. In the month of May, growth in the country's industrial output fell. In April, it expanded by 5.6%, but last month the growth was just 3.5%. Sales in the retail sector rose by 12.7%. The forecast, though, was more than 13%. So China has missed the growth target. Youth unemployment has crossed 20%, which is a record high. And this is not a temporary slump. There is a clear downward trend, one that cannot be reversed easily. Investors who were once bullish on China are having second thought. One of them is a man called Stanley Druckenmiller. He's one of the most successful hedge fund managers in the world. Before the pandemic, he was optimistic about China. Once he even described China as New York on crack. But now he has different thoughts. Let me tell you about his latest assessment on the Chinese economy, and I'm quoting, "Looking out 10 or 15 years, I just don't see it unless there's a change in power at the top. I think that's going to be a very undynamic economy." So this is a vote of no confidence, not just against the Chinese economy, but also against the Communist Party. And that's bad news for Xi Jinping. A strong economy sustains the Communist Party of China. Its legitimacy is tied to economic growth. As long as the people of China have economic security, they're less likely to question the party and its authority to rule the country. That is the unwritten contract, but it's now been appended. So there's discontent. People are unhappy about the lack of growth. Even Beijing's censors cannot hide this. Chinese factories are facing a surge in protests. As of May, at least 130 factory strikes were recorded in China. Workers went on protest. What were they angry about? The root cause is wages. They're not getting their money. Factory owners are unable to pay salaries. Either payments are delayed or workers are being laid off without any notice, without any severance pay. In some cases, workers were simply relocated. They were sent to remote areas. How does that help? Factory owners wanted these workers to leave. They didn't want to pay them, so they made their commute to work harder by forcing them to live in far-off places. It is cruel, but the factory owners themselves are helpless. They're not getting any new business. Recently, a survey was conducted. It was done by the government of China. Over 3,000 factories across the country were covered in this survey. They reported a decline in economic activity. They're getting fewer new orders. And this is an alarming situation because factories are the backbone of the Chinese economy. China was once called the workshop of the world. Now it's struggling. It's mulling extreme measures. Reports say a stimulus package is also being discussed. The plans are not final, though. But Beijing could push a range of measures. A dozen proposals are on the table, like tax breaks, more loans for small businesses, and lowering the cost of mortgages to boost real estate. China's central bank is taking action too. Today, they slashed borrowing costs. More decisions will be taken in the coming days, but experts are skeptical. They compare the stimulus packages to antibiotics. They might reduce the symptoms, but they'll not treat the underlying issues. What the Chinese economy needs at this point is a surgery. It cannot be fixed with high-profile photo ops. We begin with developments from China. President Xi Jinping is looking at a busy weekend. He'll host U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, a very significant meeting that the world will be watching closely. But before that, Xi Jinping will have another visitor, Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft. Gates is traveling to Beijing. The meeting is scheduled for tomorrow. Now, had it been any other country, it may not have been such a big deal. Most world leaders regularly meet business titans. But Xi Jinping is not your regular leader. Also, this meeting is less about business and more about image correction. The Chinese president is in urgent need of that. The pandemic ruined whatever was left of his reputation. Then he shut himself away from the world and unleashed his wolf warriors. That isolation and offensive approach backfired, so now he's busy repairing the damage. Also, China's economy is in dire straits. Investments have dried up. Businesses are wary of operating in China. The country is increasingly seen as less welcoming. Repeated crackdowns and erratic policies are causing losses. Companies are moving out of China. And you know all of this. Well, so does the Chinese leadership. Hence the meeting with Bill Gates. It's expected to be a charm offensive to change the world's perception about China. But here's the thing about perception. It cannot be built or changed overnight. So one meeting may not be enough to restore trust. But it can be a significant start. And we'll tell you why. Bill Gates is already in China. He says this visit is about the Gates Foundation. That's his non-profit organization, the Gates Foundation. He'll see Xi Jinping on Friday in a one-on-one meeting. They've not shared the agenda, but the choice of Bill Gates is a well-thought-out one. He's revered in China as an entrepreneur. So this affair will get a lot of publicity. Official photographs are expected. Chinese mouthpieces are expected to amplify every detail of the meeting. They're already at it, in fact. Look at this post from Global Times. Bill Gates was warmly welcomed in China. He joins a stream of US billionaires visiting China, even as US continues to adopt a hostile approach. Classic Chinese propaganda, always playing the victim card. The West is hurting us, they say, but China is still open for business. That's their message. Slight problem, though. The world sees through it. The Chinese state is in crisis mode. In recent weeks, urgent meetings have been convened in Beijing. Senior Chinese officials are holding talks with business leaders and with economists. They want advice. China's technocrats are unable to revive the economy, so they're looking for ideas. The list of challenges is growing. Economic growth has slowed. It's fallen to its lowest levels in 40 years, 4 decades. Youth unemployment is at a record high, and the real estate sector has more or less collapsed. So Chinese officials took these problems to experts, and here's what they were told. Change your approach, make policy changes, and let the market decide what's best. Stop issuing diktats from Beijing. Xi Jinping seems to have got the message too, and he's signaling a shift away from draconian policies like zero COVID and aggressive crackdowns on businesses. There are also attempts to woo back foreign investors. Xi's lieutenants have been holding meetings too, the likes of Elon Musk and Tim Cook. They visited China recently. Last month, Musk met with the Chinese vice premier. The Tesla founder left with an assurance. Beijing told him that they'll continue to open up and create a better environment for his business. Apple CEO Tim Cook was told the same thing, that China will open up, and now it's the turn of Bill Gates. When he meets Xi Jinping tomorrow, Beijing is expected to stick to the same message. But you see, messages help only so much. If you don't walk the talk, it makes no difference. Meanwhile, in Lebanon, the economy is collapsing, and the politics is making it worse. This is a country of about 5 million people located in West Asia, and it's facing a major crisis. Lebanon does not have a president. It doesn't even have a proper government. Not for want of trying, though, because the lawmakers have tried repeatedly. Yesterday, they made their 12th attempt and failed. I'll repeat that. They could not appoint a president after 12 attempts. It's been 7.5 months of utter chaos. The country is running on autopilot, and it's heading straight towards a crash. Our next report has the details.
There was yet another standoff in the Lebanese parliament yesterday, a vote to select the president. Sadly, this wasn't any pivotal moment. It has become all too common. This was the 12th attempt to select a president, the 12th vote in 7.5 months.
Jihad Azour 59.
And just like the 11 times before this, the vote failed once again. Before we get into why, let's look at the contenders. One candidate was Suleiman Frange. He's the grandson of a former president with whom he shares his name. He also served as Lebanon's Minister of Interior and Municipalities between 2004 and 2005. His opponent was Jihad Azour. He's a former finance minister of Lebanon, having served in the role from 2005 to 2008. He's also an alumni of the International Monetary Fund. He became the IMF director of the Middle East and Central Asia Department in 2017. Azour seems to check the boxes when it comes to becoming Lebanon's president. He's an economic expert, and that's essential when considering the crisis consuming Lebanon. The country's economy has been crumbling since 2019. The exchange rate used to be about 1,500 Lebanese pounds to the dollar. Today, that rate is over 15,000 pounds to the dollar, a tenfold decrease in value. But this isn't the only problem. In 2020, an explosion ripped through the main port in Lebanon's capital, Beirut. Over 200 people died and more than 300,000 were left homeless. Damages amounted to billions of dollars. Between all this and the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine, Lebanon lies at the brink of collapse. So you'd think the politicians would get on with it and select a president. Either the political family's scion or the economic expert. Anything would be better than the present stalemate, right? Not quite. This brings us to why Lebanon faces its power vacuum. Politics. Lebanon's parliament is divided. The group calling the shots seems to be Hezbollah. It has been designated a terrorist organization by a lot of countries, but is backed by Iran. And it's a strong political party in Lebanon. Hezbollah dislikes the economist candidate Jihad Azour. Hezbollah and its allies voted for Suleiman Frangi. Almost everyone else wanted Azour. This was the result.
Suleiman Firange 51, Jihad Azour 59, Ziad Baroud 6, New Lebanon 8, Empty Ballot 1, Joseph Aoun 1, Annulled Paper 1. Total would be 127. There is one missing paper.
The economist was ahead by 8 votes. A second round was supposed to be held. In the second round, Azour would have needed just 6 extra votes. If he hit 65, Azour would have become president. But that wasn't to be. Hezbollah and its allies staged a walkout. That meant Lebanon's parliament fell short of the minimum number of lawmakers needed to initiate a vote, leading to the 12th attempt to choose a president also failing. This has become such a routine affair that no one was surprised.
Of course, we knew this is how the session would go, since it was called for and they wanted to go ahead with it. They did not postpone it, but of course with no result. We were sure that more than 50% or 70%, we knew there will be no precedent. They will agree on a third candidate. There is no other way.
We are tired and no one is able to change anything. They either don't know how to change anything or they don't have the intention to. But the result is one. Lebanon and the Lebanese are the biggest losers.
She says Lebanon and the Lebanese are the biggest losers, a country and its people without leadership, heading for an economic collapse and more misery.
Now to the biggest story from India, the violence in Manipur. I'm sure you've seen the pictures, houses on fire, gun battles, ethnic clashes. It's been a really worrying couple of weeks. And on Tuesday, things escalated even more. 9 people were shot dead in the village of Aijang. Take a look at this map. It is located in southern Manipur. It's also very close to the Myanmar border. Why is that important? Because some groups are pointing fingers across the border. They say militants from Myanmar were behind this attack. Now, this is a very complicated issue. The violence itself is internal, but the fear is that outside elements could hijack it, that insurgents could feed on the fear. So let's look at the fundamental issues here. How did the violence start? What is the threat from Myanmar and how serious is it? To understand the violence, you must know Manipur's demography. 2 groups are important here. The Meitei community, which lives in the valley, and the Kukis, who live on the hills. Meiteis make up around 53% of the state's population. The Kuki community is around 28%. Now, these are numbers from the year 2011, more than a decade old. We don't know how they've changed in the years since. The Meiteis have generally dominated state politics in Manipur. All except 2 chief ministers have been from this community. The Kukis are a scheduled tribe, ST. Their land and culture is protected by the Constitution of India. They also have quotas for jobs. But the Metis community does not have the ST tag, and that is the root cause of this conflict. Because Metis want to be declared a scheduled tribe. They claim their numbers have fallen, their language is under threat, and their ancestral land is being taken away. The Kuki community disagrees. In the month of March, the Manipur High Court got involved. It asked the state government to recommend ST status for Metis. That's when all hell broke loose. Tribal groups took out marches across the state. There was arson and shooting. So far, around 116 people have died. More than 1,700 houses have been burned down, and around 40,000 people have been displaced. India's Home Minister Amit Shah visited the state this month. The Indian Army is also on the job. Yet the violence refuses to die down. The clashes on Tuesday were the biggest since May. Houses were set on fire. There was gunfighting on the streets, and in the end, 9 people died. Reports say they belong to the Metis community. So that answers the first question. How did the violence erupt? Now to the second one. What is this threat from Myanmar? Let's pull up that map again. Manipur and Myanmar share a border, a 400-kilometer long border. It's very porous. Less than 10% of that border is fenced, meaning it's very easy to cross. And this has led to 2 problems. Number one, there is a steady flow of refugees, especially after the coup in 2021 in Myanmar. Metis say that these refugees are close to Kukis and they're altering the state's demography. The other side, of course, denies this. The second problem is more insurgency. Each group had their own extremist sidekick, like the Kuki Revolutionary Army or the United National Liberation Front, UNLF, which is a Metis group. They used to be very powerful once. But today, these groups are based in Myanmar. The dense jungle near the border is a perfect place to hide. The current violence seems to have given them an opportunity, the perfect opportunity, a chance to reignite the insurgency. The state government already suspects that. They accused groups from Myanmar for the violence last month. So the question is this: what can be done now? The obvious option is to solidify the border. Home Minister Amit Shah did talk about it. He says efforts are underway to survey the entire frontier. Listen to this.
परमानेंट सॉल्यूशन के लिए हमने म्यांमार और मणिपुर की बॉर्डर पर पहले ही ट्रायल बेस पर 10 किलोमीटर बाड़ लगाने का, फेंसिंग करने का काम हमने पूरा कर लिया है और 80 किलोमीटर के काम को हमने टेंडरिंग कर चुके हैं और बाकी की बॉर्डर की हम सर्वे भी चालू कर रहे हैं.
Can India expect help from Myanmar? That seems unlikely right now. India does not support the military junta, although it does engage with them. India has called for a return to democracy in Myanmar. Plus, the Myanmar border area is dangerous terrain. It is not completely under the junta's control either. The government clearly has plans to contain the situation, but urgency is key. There is an internet ban in some parts of the state. There's also Section 144, a curfew. While the short-term solution is clearly internal, in the long term, India will have to deal with the Myanmar question. Can one person make a difference? It's not some philosophical question. I mean it. We live in the era of mega celebrities. It's not like before, when information took weeks to filter down. You tweet and the world knows instantly. So yes, one person can make a big difference nowadays. The question is how big? Let's look at some recent examples. You've probably heard about Lionel Messi's big move. He's quit the French club PSG, Paris Saint-Germain. He's now going to play for Inter Miami in the United States. And this move has arguably changed American football. Inter Miami had 1 million Instagram followers before Messi. Now, more than 8 million. Ticket prices are also through the roof. Before Messi, the cheapest ticket was around $29. In 24 hours, that shot up to $329. That's a 1,000% rise in prices. The biggest increase was for Miami's match against New York. If all goes to plan, it will be Messi's first game in the Big Apple. Guess how much those tickets are going for? More than $450. A 1,200% rise in prices. And this is all down to one player joining the club. Let's also look at the merchandise. Reports say Adidas will sell 2 million Miami jerseys this year. The club will get $45 million from that. Fun fact, $45 million is 2 times their annual revenue. Imagine that. All of this is happening before Messi set foot in Miami. You can guess what will happen afterwards. But Messi is not alone. Another star is shaking the economy in Sweden. Beyoncé held a concert there in the month of May. Around 46,000 people attended the event. She's now being blamed for the country's stubborn inflation. It was 10.5% in April. In the month of May, it actually came down to 9.7%. But economists noted something strange. Food and electricity prices had fallen last month, but hotel and restaurant bills went up. The reason? Beyoncé, apparently. Hotel rates were jacked up due to the demand from concert goers. This economist has even done the math. He says Beyoncé raised the inflation by 0.2 to 0.3%. I can give you more such examples. Michael Jordan, the NBA legend, he has an exclusive deal with Nike. You may have heard about their Air Jordan line of shoes. Air Jordan sales are around $5 billion. Nike's total footwear sales around $30 billion. So 16% of the revenue comes from one athlete's brand, and that too a retired athlete. What do these examples tell you? Brand value is the most important currency today. It's not just quality that sells, it's also association with big names. And athletes know this. Just look at David Beckham, arguably one of the most famous footballers. He keeps minting money even after retirement. How does he do it? By using his brand. Qatar roped him in to endorse the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Guess how much they paid him? $177 million. Today's deals are not just about salaries and one-time payments. It's much more complicated than that. Let's stick to Beckham. Like Messi, he joined a US club in 2007. His contract had an interesting clause. Beckham could purchase a new US football club for $25 million. He used that clause in the year 2014, and that team is Inter Miami. Guess how much it's worth today? More than $600 million. Messi's deal is also set to include clauses like this one. He could get revenue from jersey sales, also from Apple TV, which streams football in the US. Like I said, it's not just wages and salaries anymore, it's a cocktail of things. But all of it boils down to brand. Not every footballer can set terms like Messi or Beckham. Not every singer can jack up prices like Beyoncé. It has to be matched by pedigree and popularity. It also means more responsibility. If they can shake economies, you can imagine their control over fans. It's important for these figures to set the right example, to talk about the right causes. If not, people will remember their contracts, but not their contribution. Get ready to bend backwards at work, and this time literally, and openly fall asleep in office. Just remember to do it in the Shavasana pose, because now you can give your regards to the Y break. I'm joking, but the Y break is no joke. It stands for a yoga break, and India's central government is urging its employees to take one, to do yoga at their office desks, to quote-unquote de-stress, refresh and refocus. After all, yoga has the power to calm the mind and strengthen the body. For thousands of years, it has hooked practitioners around the world because yoga is for everyone, the young and the old, the overweight and the fit. And apparently, Indian government employees too. Here's a report.
This is BKS Iyengar, a world-renowned yoga exponent. It's understood that his last words were, "I have lived a majestic life." Majestic. You may agree that this adjective can easily be used to describe him. Just look at his photos. He is grey-haired and bendy-bodied. So observing these pictures may affect you in two ways. At first, his scary suppleness is awe-inspiring, but this feeling is soon followed by despair, oozing out of most people who can't even touch their own toes. But it's not too late, because that's the beauty of yoga. It is for everyone to do, and anyone can start at any age. Now, the expectation isn't to perform Cirque du Soleil acts. Even simple yoga at one's office desk can do the trick. And that's exactly what the government of India is urging people to do. The centre has asked its employees to take a Y break. It stands for a yoga break, so employees can do yoga at the workplace. And the center has suggestions too. Some light practices which only require a few minutes of break from work, like the ones you see in these visuals. The protocol compromises of asanas or postures, pranayama or breathing techniques, and dhyana or meditation. These techniques originated in India over 5,000 years ago, but today millions across the world practice them. Simply because yoga really is as healthy as people say. It requires little to no equipment. It can be accessible to nearly everyone. And it's linked to wide-ranging health benefits. Yoga reduces stress and body pain. It improves sleep and cognition. Research also suggests that it improves balance, strength, and flexibility. A study says that practicing yoga can help reduce fatigue in cancer patients. It can even cut the risk of the disease spreading. But that's not all. Yoga also offers wide-ranging mental health benefits. It reduces anxiety and stress and elevates one's mood. Why? Because of the mind-body connection. Yoga is an intentional practice. It requires focus from both mind and body. While exercising, like jogging, people often distract their minds on purpose. That isn't the case with yoga, and this is what makes it an enigma of benefits. This is crucial in today's day and age. Office goers complain of backaches from sitting at desks, or chronic wrist pain from typing away day on day. These problems even have fancy names. Have you heard of the office syndrome? It refers to the inflammation of neck, shoulder, and back muscles. A study says that 8 in 10 office goers suffer from such pain. Our work life is grueling and, ironically, sedentary at the same time. Thus far, our office desks have witnessed clawed fingers clacking away at keyboards, stacks of paper, and stashes of coffee mugs. But now they can witness something completely different, something healthy, which can save us from daily stress and physical pain. And the solution is simply a few minutes of yoga, right here at our desks. But if you don't know where to begin, we have a tip. Why not start with laughing yoga, directed at your boss's jokes? After all, it could have unexpected benefits.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. We're starting with India. A fire broke out at an educational institute in the national capital, New Delhi. Students climbed down the building using wires. Meanwhile, an overcrowded migrant boat capsized and sank near a coastal town of Greece. At least 79 people drowned. Some migrants were rescued by helicopter. And in Peru, a 3,000-year-old mummy has been found. Archaeologists say this could be a case of human sacrifice. Finally, what makes the 15th of June significant? We're taking you back in history. On this day in 2001, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or the SCO, was founded. It was a successor of Shanghai 5, which was founded in 1996. The aim of the SCO was to focus on regional security issues. India became an observer in 2005 and a full member in 2017. We're leaving you with this. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Aquí ya me dio uno. Está bastante erosionado, ¿no?